What the hell is Saw Sports or whatever that last call was talking about? What the hell is that?
What is up, Sauce Nation? It is your boy Hector Flores coming at you with some videos about the Houston Astros. And honestly, man, we're in a really weird time when it comes to sports in general, mainly because of what's going on right now. So obviously everybody knows all the leagues are suspended till further notice. I think MLS is saying somewhere around May 15, MLB somewhere around late May to maybe even June. NBA, you really don't know, but so we're kind of in a weird position as far as content here on this channel, but we're gonna start trying to make some things go, and maybe we start doing an all-time Astros, all-time Dynamo, all-time Rockets, something to just kind of kill some time or make some content for you guys. So if you guys want that, please make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment on these videos, so we know what exactly you guys want from us and get a conversation going. If you guys are on the Discord, make sure you guys also drop on the Discord. Maybe that'll be more of a direct way to reach out to us, as well as hitting us up on our social media platforms, obviously Instagram, Twitter, and the Facebook page. If you guys have any interesting video ideas that we can to at least make some continuity and make sure this channel continues to have consistency when it comes to making content. Now, aside from all that, the reason I'm making this video is I think a lot of people weren't entirely sure as to why the Astros didn't make many moves in the free agency period. Now, in this video, I'm only going to mention free agency moves and trades, new additions, I guess you can say. And the reason why I'm not going to mention arbitration, because technically, regardless how the arbitration would have went, the players would have still been on the Astros payroll. And I'll explain as to why the Astros maybe weren't necessarily so committed to making those big signings, and then obviously the big obvious reason as to why they weren't really making much moves. So before we do all that, make sure you guys like and comment on this video. Tell me how you guys feel about this, and maybe we can also come up with some ideas to make for a future video on the Astros, Dynamo, or the Rockets as well. So without further ado, let's get this video started. So the obvious one, well, as far as like the free agency or lack thereof, we'll talk about the free agent signings. So the Astros end up regaining Joe Smith back, relief pitcher. We brought back Martin Maldonado, and then we ended up signing Dustin Garneau. So even though necessarily these guys were re-signed, they were technically free agents. So technically we didn't re-sign them, we just signed them back into the team. Joe Smith, obviously I'm really happy to have him. He was a very solid relief pitcher for the team. Martin Maldonado, say what you guys want, but this guy was a really good catcher. He's obviously a former Golden Glove winner. You know, things that Martin Maldonado is, he's just very knowledgeable of the game. And there's a reason why Gerrit Cole really liked him. And I really still stand by that. The Yankees messed up big time by not signing Martin Maldonado if they were going to bring Gerrit Cole, because now Gerrit Cole has to pitch with Gary Sanchez instead of a guy that is really solid and knows how to frame pitches like Martin Maldonado does. And then Dustin Garneau is pretty much the backup catcher. I think the real competition will be between him and Garrett Stubbs as to who will be that backup. But now with the MLB adding in a 26 roster spot, that opens up some opportunity to keep a third catcher, if you will. But the beauty of Garrett Stubbs is that he could play multiple positions. He can play also in the outfield, and I believe second base as well. So I think he's definitely going to be somebody the Astros will probably consider keeping him in that 26 roster spot. And the other new additions that the Astros got amongst the trades, obviously they traded for Blake Taylor and Kennedy Corona from the Mets for that Jake Marisnick deal, and then getting Austin Pruitt from Tampa Bay. Now Blake Taylor, I don't think he's going to be coming up right away with us, so he's going to be part of our farm system. Kennedy Corona as well, I think he's going all the way down. Probably will be in single A. Maybe be kind of flirting with double A, but I think for sure single A. And Austin Pruitt, I think, could definitely come off the bullpen. He's a hometown kid, so I think it's going to be really interesting. But these aren't worthwhile moves. These aren't worthwhile signings. I mean, I like the Martin Maldonado signing, but I know it's not something that everybody on the in the Houston fan base is going to really love. And I'll kind of explain the real big reason why, as well as the other reason, the obvious reason, as we get into this one. Now, there are two reasons why the Astros weren't able to make huge moves, huge signings. And I'll start off with the big one before I go to the obvious one. The big one is the budget. The Astros currently are flirting with that budget threshold number. Now, in baseball, there is not a salary cap. I think Major League Baseball is the only league here in the United States that doesn't have that. But each team has a budget threshold now, which I guess you would say is a salary cap. So each individual team has their own salary cap, I guess you could say, but is viewed as a budget threshold. And once you pass that threshold, you have to pay a luxury tax. And so the Astros are now in that situation, and obviously anything they do within the payroll, and that includes also arbitration decisions, which most of the guys Astros actually avoided arbitration with. But now we're going into where Jose Altuve's contract, his extension is finally kicking in. Alex Bregman's contract extension is kicking in. Justin Verlander's extension is kicking in now. And then obviously now we're taking in Zach Greinke's contract. So those contracts are adding up. And so the current budget for the Houston Astros is $208 million. Now that is a lot, but when you really break down the number of all the players you're getting, the Astros are really flirting with that budget threshold number. And with the fact that they do eventually want to re-sign George Springer. And this is where people maybe didn't fully understand as to why the Astros were trying to see if anyone would want to go for Carlos Correa in a trade. But obviously, you know, the trade rumors ended up dispersing after that. But that was a big reason why the Astros couldn't really make any big signings, because had they made a big sign, honestly, if there was a player to go all out for, in my opinion, which honestly at this time the Astros' big needs were getting a catcher and getting a starting pitcher to replace Garrett Cole. To me, going for Yasmani Grandal would have been the big obvious one. I think with his power bat, you know, he's a solid catcher in my opinion. Not the best catcher, but definitely a solid catcher in my opinion. And with an amazing bat that he has, he would have easily been perfect for the Astros. But obviously, with the Chicago White Sox, a team that can afford to make that big move. And like I said, the Astros are now flirting with the budget. And the question is, at the end, is it some guy that we're willing to go all out for to have to pay a luxury tax? And I think that was a situation with that being said. And then starting pitchers, I just think you see the potential with our youth, our youth prospects as far as the pitching position. But at the same time, you want to get one of those surefire guys that are going to come in and do their thing. But, it is what it is at that point. Now, the obvious issue, and it was pretty obvious even if you guys, personally, I know the consensus is that y'all don't care. You're all happy that the Astros are still the 2017 World Series champions. But the big obvious reason is the scandal. The scandal was the big issue as to why people were kind of hesitant about signing with the Houston Astros. They weren't sure if the Astros would have gotten a postseason ban. They weren't sure if what was going to happen. Were players going to get suspended? Were they going to end up having to commit to a team for 4 to 6 years? Well, let's be more realistic, 2 to 6 years. And next thing you know, half the roster's gone, and you're kind of having to carry the load for the team. It's that situation. It was something that they maybe didn't want to see what happened and kind of wanted to wait. But the scandal, and they came out with their decision in the scandal. Many people are against it. Some people agree with it. Some people don't. It's not a big deal at this point. What's done is done. There's no point in crying over spilled milk. I'm sure there's going to be some Astros haters or asterisks or trash girls, whatever they want to call us at this point, that are going to try to say something for me saying that. But I mean, what's done is done. There's nothing you can do. All you can do at this point is just move on from this. But aside from that, man, that's really the obvious reason as to why many teams didn't want to sign with the Astros, because you didn't know what was going to happen with the Astros. This team went from being a very strong and heavy favorite to now you can lose half your team and you're sitting out for a whole season. You're playing one whole season without your star players. And so Because to be honest, the 2017 Astros, a lot of the guys that were on the team currently are some of the big name players. You're talking about Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, George Springer, Justin Verlander, Lance McCullers Jr. Just a big list of guys that you essentially would be coming into a team of nothing of minor leaguers, and you just have to be there to step up kind of thing. And that's asking a lot for a free agent. But like I said, man, what's done is done. They made the decision. No one got suspended. If you feel like they should have got suspended, well, that's great, but it's not changing anything. But yeah, so that was the big reason why, the obvious reason as to why free agents weren't coming. But aside from that, also the Astros budget could also be a major factor into that, for the fact that we didn't make much free agent signings. To sum things up, man, the Astros pretty much didn't make much moves. They just regained somebody from the bullpen that was drastically needed, to be honest, and brought back a catcher that a lot of the guys are very familiar with, as well as someone to back him up, or at least bring some competition to Garrett Stubbs. As far as the guys that we traded in for, these are guys that maybe won't be impactful as of right now, but I think Austin Pruitt would definitely be thrown into that bullpen, kind of replacing Will Harris in a way. But I mean, when you're in the situation that the Astros are in right now, which is, wow, it was great to develop through prospects and farm systems and all that, you're now going into the reality of what happens when you do these things, and that is eventually these guys are going to get paid. And even though baseball goes through great lengths to not pay these guys, to be honest, there is that moment once these guys are going to get paid. And this is where the Astros are going to have to start really thinking and really digesting as to who's essential enough to stay and who's not. And once again, even though you guys may not value the scandal as a scandal, but the scandal was a big reason as to why team players were not necessarily interested in hearing out the Astros. And you could even say the same thing for trades as well, because I mean, maybe that was a big factor for the Correa trade. Maybe no one wanted to trade some prospects, or maybe trade in some big key guys, and then end up finding out that Correa can't play for a year not because of injury, but because of the scandal. So that is a big factor. Now, the Astros didn't make any groundbreaking moves, but you still got to look at what this team has. And obviously, you look at Jose Altuve, you look at Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa in some sense, Yuli Gurriel, George Springer, Michael Brantley, Josh Reddick can even provide a good pop every once in a while. You got Yordan Alvarez, you got Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke, Lance McCullers Jr., and the hope of Jose Urquidy and someone else to step up in this team. And you think that this team is at least good enough to win their division? And I think so. I think the only team that's really going to give you a big problem will be the Oakland Athletics. But aside from that, I think the Astros do look like a playoff team, whether that be through the wild card or whether that be winning the division. They look pretty solid, and I think obviously with their chip on their shoulders, they're looking to prove that they don't need a trash can to win a World Series title, and that's really going to be their statement for this season if they can even do it. But obviously, two key factors need to happen going into the season whenever it does start, and that is, one, they got to push all that has happened in the past out of their heads. They cannot go into the season with thinking about the past. They got to look forward and just play the game right now. And two, they just have to let the distractions be on the side. Don't focus on those things. You're gonna be heckled everywhere you go. There's gonna be pitches thrown at you everywhere you go. Things are gonna be hostile. And if they can push that to the side, rally each other as a team, this team can do great things. I mean, do I believe that they didn't cheat in 2019? I understand why people believe that we cheated in 2019, but once again, the investigation showed that they didn't. And obviously, they made it back to the World Series, was one game away from winning it all. And I think that, if this team can set their mind right, I think this team could be a very solid contender for the 2020 World Series if this 2020 season even starts. So those are my kind of uplifting speech for y'all, but I do think the Astros definitely need to look at some catchers, though. Maybe during June or July, like in the trade deadline, maybe they make a move for a catcher. But aside from that, man, I think the Astros do have a very solid team. Still has some decent pitching, and I think as long as you have Brett Strum, coaching up these guys as a pitching coach, I think this team will be fine. So with all that being said, man, chucking up a deuce. Y'all stay saucy.
Perfect.